Juilliard Cox.
Yeah!
It was at this moment that Jay knew he f***ed up. Not too long ago, I was just like you, just walking through the halls of my local university, thinking that this was the ultimate thing that I could do with my time and energy. Turns out, I was wrong. We're at a point in history where post-secondary education, which involves college and university, is less of a nice to have and more of a must these days. And most of us get into university or college starting a 4-year degree when we don't even know what we want to do in life, and we hardly ever do at the tender age of 18 or however old you were when you started university. We conform and do this because it's the right thing to do. It's what our parents told us to do. It's what our parents did, and it's what our grandparents did before them and everyone else. They went to school to learn skills and apply it to the market, right? But that's not really the case anymore, and even in Europe, you have to choose even earlier than we do here in North America, or as early as 13 sometimes, to know exactly what kind of career you want to go into and exactly what you want to be doing for the rest of your life at 13. And yes, by the way, I'm sitting on a camping chair. This is what it looks like when you're trying to film videos in a hurry. But what frustrates me the most is that we spend all this time in elementary school, in middle school, and in high school, and then we go right into university, and people think that we're supposed to know what we want to do for the rest of our lives, but in reality we haven't even had a chance to pursue our passions because we're stuck all day in a classroom for the better of 12 years. And even worse, when I finished my bachelor's degree, I felt like it was too bland, and so I went into a master's program thinking that it would set me apart from everyone else who had a bachelor's degree, and even that idea was wrong. And in markets like today, degrees and all these accolades don't matter nearly as much as they used to, and the bachelor's degree doesn't hold nearly enough value. In fact, it's probably closer to being the value of a high school education than it is as a bachelor's degree. It's practically the new high school. At least that's how it seems in the job market. And honestly, when I graduated, I had maybe the wrong understanding of the world, but that at least there would be some sort of path for me to follow and some way to move forward after I graduated. But instead I was more so flung into limbo and kind of fending for myself, which I'm sure a lot of people can also relate to, especially in these times where the job market isn't necessarily the strongest, or you studied something that doesn't actually happen to have jobs in that sector at that moment. For me especially, half the time I didn't know what I wanted to do in the next 5 minutes, let alone with my entire future. So I was kind of in this limbo where I needed to figure out where I wanted to go next. One thing I need to say is that school does not prepare you for the real world and for life in general. You have this idea that you're becoming this person and learning all these things and stacking on top of it and developing professionally and personally to become this person in the world and in life, and you just don't get to that point in school, and it's more so what you do after the fact and how introspective you can be after you graduate where the real growth comes in. And that's one of the main things I've learned from my education and now being in the real world, is that school isn't everything. Even though I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in economics, which took me over 5 years of my life, I still only use on a daily basis maybe 3 or 4 things that I learned, and even throughout the year it's probably no more than a handful of things that I learned throughout my entire degrees that I actually use and apply in my job. Now mind you, I do work in finance, so it's a little bit different than strictly economics, but a lot of it is so theoretical of what you learn in school, especially as you move higher up the ranks in school and throughout your master's degree or PhD. It keeps getting more granular, and if you're not in the right field, it can become way too theoretical and not at all applicable to the field that you want to be working in. Of course, becoming a doctor or becoming a lawyer, these are very well positioned to get you ready for those things, but most of the time, all of the other things are just kind of fluff. Like me, for example, I had to do a Bachelor of Science to get an economics degree. So my entire first year, I had to take 2 classes in biology, 2 classes in chemistry, and 2 classes in physics. none of which I wanted to pursue. I wanted to do economics, but it was still a requirement. Why? I think the worst part about all of this schooling stuff is that it just doesn't prepare you in terms of what to expect. So some people go in thinking a job will be very high paying or that they're actually going to enjoy it. But when it comes to the nature of the work, you just sit in a cubicle and enter data all day, or you get paid $20,000 a year. And obviously none of that is very desirable. So we end up switching careers or going back to school to learn something else and go a completely different direction. But the biggest problem by far that I have with the whole education system, and this is especially true in the United States, is that it is not made for everyone, especially with how much it costs. Not just in terms of money, but also opportunity cost, which as an economist, that's one of the things I use more often. The opportunity cost of giving away years of your life when you could be doing what you're secretly really hoping to do in the future anyway, but isn't really related to your studies. And for those people, school might not be for them. You need to remember, universities are businesses. Even though they are funded, at least in Canada, they are subsidized by the government. Not everything is paid for by the government, but they are privatized institutions for the most part. They still operate on a for-profit business to make money off of students. It of course is meant to educate you, but in the long run, they're just trying to make money. They just want to churn through students. They want you to get whatever degree will make them money. They don't care. They just want to get you into the system. And that is so broken. They should be guiding us to find the passion that we have to actually make us viable and useful cogs in the economic machine, which currently is not the case. As I mentioned, there is always situations where you do want to go to school. If you want to become a doctor, if you want to become a lawyer or investment banker, you need that experience. They do teach you those soft and hard skills, albeit not everything in school. But for some of us, it's just not the right way to go. If we're so passionate about creating content, or you're very passionate about sculpting, like sure, you can take a course on sculpting, but unless you actually sit there and sculpt or get a mentor to help you sculpt, you're not going to learn anything. So you can learn all the principles about sculpting that you want, but you're never going to get better unless you do it. And for those kinds of people, school might not be the best way to follow your passion. And people need to start realizing that that's completely okay. And there are so many careers and jobs that are very lucrative and that bring more joy to you, don't require a formal education. And another thing I want to touch on that you guys know I'm very passionate about is non-formal education. Stuff like YouTube, or even buying a course that might cost $1,000, but you learn way more in depth and more niche for what you're focused on. These are very valuable ways to also obtain an education that doesn't involve you going to university at all. This also includes things like having a guide or a mentor in an area where you're very passionate about and getting them to help you out and learn from real world experience, because time and again, it's been shown that this helps you learn so much faster than sitting in a classroom digesting words and graphs on a slideshow. Like the old saying goes, I have no idea where this came from, but experience always trumps formal education. And that's so true, as I've learned even in the field where I work in. I've been there for about 11 months now at my current job, and I've learned so much more than I did in multiple years in my degrees. And it's just because it's a hands-on application of using the knowledge that I had. Even some of the greats in the world, as you're probably familiar with, including Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and the lizard man Mark Zuckerberg, they all didn't have a formal college education, but they decided to just follow their passion and what they really wanted to do and what to build. And they let that guide them instead of what society was telling them to conform to. And that's what led to their success, not because they followed what other people did. And so I'm telling you, it's okay to do the same. If you have this burning desire to do something else, or just currently don't see where you want your life to go, it's okay to take some time and figure that out. What terrifies me the most is that schooling teaches us to be somewhat closed-minded, in that we have this set of skills that we learn in school, we go into a job, utilize those skills, and because of that we never really follow our passions, because we don't want that sunk cost to hang above our heads and do what we want. And that terrifies me, because that means you'll never follow your passion and just settle for good enough. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the absolutely astronomical number of hurdles to get through the education system. Okay, let me explain. So, you start in elementary school, right? Sure. You move on to middle school, easy enough. Sometimes you have a little graduation, sure. After middle school, same thing, go to high school. But then when you get to high school, stuff gets getting a little bit more difficult. You have to spend more time on homework and everything. Okay, but then you have to work and get good grades in the last 2 years, so you have to work even harder to get that diploma. And then, cool, you have a diploma. Now you can apply for university. And that involves labor-intensive essay writing, sometimes taking months to finalize and get everything ready, gather all the documents, and then you apply to multiple universities, paying fees for every single one. And then most of the time, if they're prestigious, you might not even get in, and you'd have to apply again the next year. And if you are lucky enough to get in, that is just the start once again. Working every single day, we're like getting more coursework and doing more work just to get those better grades, and then you complete your 4 years, you're completely burnt out, and you have a degree. Awesome. But now you notice everyone else does too, and you're like, maybe I should get a master's degree. Good idea. Okay, so back to square one. We go and apply again. Look at what schools we want to go to. Prepare a super thick application package. Make sure we have an honors degree, because that's required for certain degrees as well. Make sure we have all these test results from these different places that show we're able to learn, even though we already have a bachelor's degree. Also kind of ridiculous. And then, awesome, we got into a master's program, which is more competitive to get into than a bachelor's degree. And then, again, more research, and you have to do more coursework. And then when you finally have that master's degree, you graduated, you have to apply for jobs. And that is tedious. I sent out probably 70 or 80 different applications, which probably took me hundreds of hours to create and to put together and tailor each one to each individual employer. And when I was finally lucky enough to land a job, it was a shithole. I'm not gonna lie. It was probably the worst experience of my life. The people were trash. I just didn't have a good time. I was underpaid. I was always stressed about money, and it was just a horrible experience. So again, I moved to square one, started applying to other jobs again, and after 6 months of labor-intensive looking, I finally got a decent job. And all of that took a little under 24 years just to get started in the industry. So I have a problem with how the system's structured and how it wastes our time and energy. And the cherry on top of all of this is that there is no mention of two of the most important things, actually three, but one of them I don't teach on this channel. The first is personal development, which is not taught very often in courses or in school in general. The second, personal finance, teaching you how to manage money. And the third is health, which I don't cover, but all of these three are probably the majority of who we are as humans and what we need to really thrive in this world. My rant today is that this channel is predicated on getting you those resources and helping you to reconsider your life after you're done your university or college studies, or if you're in the process and you're kind of having this conundrum of you don't know what to do, or you have a passion that you want to follow but you kind of want to follow through and finish your education. And that's what I'm here for. I really want to, first of all, help you guys with personal finance and personal development content, including how to make a budget, how to manage your money right, how to invest, how to grow as a person, how to be more productive. All of these things I want to focus on, but then I also want to spend time and focus on the other side and really talk to you guys about life and how you can get to where you want to be, because I'm personally on the same journey as you. I'm trying to figure out what my passions are. I already finished my schooling, and I know for me, it personally was not worth it to spend that time, and I wish I would have started something earlier that I was passionate about. And that's just the thing. I just really want to share these messages with you. I really hope this can help you, and I hope you'll join me on this journey to kind of find myself, and hopefully through that journey I can help you guys too. But yeah, it just really bugs me how we spend so much time, 17 years I spent in school, and I didn't learn the basics of life, which is personal finance, which is one of the most important things in the world if you want to succeed. personal development, which is how to keep growing as a person, and how to stay healthy. Like, without those three things, what's really left in life? Like, why aren't we taught these things? Takeaway from this entire conversation here is that you shouldn't wait to do what you love. Life is too short for that. If you have a passion to do something, if you want to go create art in Europe, go do that. If you want to travel the world, now's the awesome time to do that. School will be there when you get back, but the experiences might change as you get older. So go enjoy life. Obviously, money might be a problem, but just work a bit and then go do that. Don't be afraid to follow your passion. Like I said, school is always going to be there. If you're 30 and you're like, okay, that didn't work out, but now I'm ready to try a degree. Cool, go do it. I've seen many people in my classes that are well into their 30s and 40s just doing their master's degree. Why? Because they really wanted to try it after they didn't do it growing up, or they found something else that they really loved and they ended up really liking it. So that's awesome. You can do it whenever you want, but it's just drilled into our heads that we have to go one level to another, just back to back to back, and not take any breaks. And that can be really detrimental to your mental health as well. Do what you love, F school, and just enjoy your 20s and 30s. Just have a good time and do what you love. See where that takes you.